What's going on, Los Angeles, LAFB fan, Bruin Nation? The Thriller and Madman back together, giving you all of your UCLA Bruin football needs. So much to talk about on this beautiful Thursday evening in Los Angeles with my brother from another mother, Will the Thrill Decker. Brother, lots to talk about, but as always, before we jump in, how you doing? How's the week going? We were talking a little bit about 4th of July plans. Just how's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that is UCLA football greatness?
Well, the pursuit of happiness is a lot easier with UCLA football doing well, man. These new commits rolling in. We're going to be discussing about that. And, I think we cooked up a fun episode for the fans. These are the proverbial dog days of summer. We got some burning hot UCLA football questions coming into this that I think are going to be really, really fun. So great episode all the way. I know you had some fun for the 4th down in San Clemente. I was in Manhattan Beach. Let freedom ring and let UCLA football start us off very, very soon.
Yes, sir. Let freedom ring indeed. And let us be set free with UCLA football expectations and greatness. Will, I think the first topic, of course, you sort of alluded to it. 2 major crystal ball predictions coming true for UCLA. We were monitoring this over the last few days. On 3, 247 Sports, kind of the usual suspects, had both of these individuals crystal ball to UCLA over the past 5 or 6 days. But in this crazy world of recruiting, you never know. So now that it is a done deal, so exciting. Particularly about these 2 guys in the position that they play, Carter Gooden and Marcus Almada. And Will, I think what's significant here is we'll start with Carter Gooden, who feels like the true prize of this duo. Both of these guys, teammates, Tabor Academy in Massachusetts.
Yeah, how cool is that?
How cool is that? Carter Gooden, Will, the number 1 player in the state of Massachusetts and the number 9 defensive lineman prospect overall in the class of 2026. By position, this is the highest rated player that UCLA has gotten for the class of 2026, which is a crazy statement considering all of the conversation you and I have had over the last week over the madness of June. But Carter Gooden, Will, comes in 6'4", 260 pounds, staggering junior year. He had 29 tackles for loss as a defensive lineman, Will, 2 forced fumbles, an interception. He's got the physicality. He's got the tools. He's got the technique. All very exciting there. Pursued by the likes of North Carolina and the GOAT, Bill Belichick, sort of hot on his heels, pursued by the likes of Penn State, who were looking to sort of replenish the Abdul Carter pipeline. He says no to both of those schools and decides to come to UCLA. And oh, by the way, his buddy, Marcus Almada, his teammate, his wingman, if you will, comes as well, who happens to not just be 6'4", but 20 pounds heavier than Carter Gooden at 280 pounds. So you're talking about a kid that really is set up for that interior defensive line, possibly even knows to really kind of bring that girth to UCLA. Almada, no slouch in any way, shape, or form, had an offer from Auburn, had an offer from Notre Dame. And yet again, Will, we see a couple of themes emerging here. Guys with opportunities to go to some blue chip, blue blood programs saying no to want to come to UCLA instead and build something from the ground up. 2, talking so much about the personal touch involved with the recruiting. And then 3, both Gooden and Almada speaking so highly of the coaching staff, Ikaika Malloy and others, about their ability to get developed to go to the next level in the NFL. So you're talking about the national brand, you're talking about the personal touch in recruiting, and you're talking about the opportunity to be developed in the NFL. These guys had their pick of the litter, and yet again, now we get commits 22 and 23 for this class of 26. Should bring UCLA back up now to that 16-17 range in recruiting, which they were a couple of weeks ago. So another huge coup for DeShaun Foster and company. Will, your thoughts?
Yeah, just monster commitments back to back. And, we praised on the last episode Tino Sinceri and Andy Kwan. This is Coach Malloy and what he's building this defensive line room, adding 2 more guys to what we talked about on the last episode. We talked about the offensive and the defensive line being the deepest recruiting of this, 2026 class thus far. So you add these guys in, and, I think the biggest thing for me is if a player is good from the Northeast, there's usually like 3 or 4 options, but Penn State is usually number 1. It's kind of the lone, powerhouse in that Northeast area. And listen, these guys are pass rushers. Think about who's come out of there in the recent years. Micah Parsons, Abdul Carter's the 3rd pick in the draft last year. And these guys are going, hey, those guys can get developed over there, but hey, I want to come out to Westwood from Massachusetts. Super impressive stuff. And Coach Malloy, I think what is, his feather in his cap is, yes, we know about the development that's occurred there. We all watched Olufemi Oladejo develop from an outside linebacker to a 2nd-round pick in roughly 8-9 games last year, Madman, for making the position change. We all saw what happened to Latu, and it's a big thing with these kids. What makes Coach Malloy, I think, so attractive to parents and players coming out here, I think, man, it is it's going to be really, really big for what's going on here and what they're building, because I think he's just very, very genuine with
Yes.
And I think that's the word that I would use when it comes to Coach Malloy. Sorry, my phone is blowing up right now.
Hey, man, listen, ESPN has Shams. Okay, LAFB has Will the Thrill Decker, baby. Hey, we don't know. There could be another recruit that just committed, and we were just told about it. You never know with the Thriller's phone there. But Will, I think you said it best. I think Ikaika Malloy is such an intelligent coach from an X's and O's and a scheme perspective. He wants to win for his players so badly. But I think that press conference last year when the team was struggling and midway through the season, right in that bye week, and he gets up there and says, I got to be better. And he's got tears streaming down his face and saying, I have to be better for these kids. I think not only did that galvanize Will, that particular roster, but I think that really went viral in the high school player community to say, man, that's a guy I want to play for. And I think it really resonated. I love your point about Penn State kind of being the big dog in the Northeast. It's so true, right? Because we talk so much about the Midwest. We talk so much about the South and the Southeast. The Northeast really doesn't get a lot of love. I mean, there's a lot of Ivy League schools up there. It's, a lot of school, Rutgers is up there. There's a lot of schools up there.
Kind of back on the rise.
Syracuse, exactly. But, it's really Penn State. So usually Penn State, when they've got a guy in that region that they want, 8 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 times, they get that guy. So for UCLA to be able to pluck from a kid that was targeted by Penn State and be able to do so from across the country, Will, when you don't have that same level of access in terms of geography and being able to kind of drop in and pop into high school games, pop in and have conversations, it really speaks to the quality of the interactions that they're having and how much they believe. So much to really, I use the word excited so much with recruiting, but so much to be proud of, really, as UCLA Bruin fans and as folks that are following the team. And yet again, the momentum keeps going here. UCLA, to your point, Will, using kind of your term, this is now becoming a national brand again, like it was with Donahue in the 80s and 90s.
I mean, when you look at the recruiting we've done, with Gooden, he's a top 100 recruit.
Yeah.
This guy, like I tweeted out today, this could very well be the crown jewel of UCLA's class.
No, absolutely.
And you're plucking him from the Northeast. I mean, when's the last time UCLA plucked a player from the Northeast? I can't even think.
No, absolutely.
That occurred. And it's just coast to coast, like we talked about in the last episode. It's almost like those movies where they're like assembling like a dream team, like a Suicide Squad, if you will. And they're going, we got to go to Hawaii to get, the Salai twins. And we got to go up north to Washington to get Schwerzel. And they go all the way out east to get the badass, teammates, and Almeida and Gooden coming through for UCLA. We got the kids in Florida. We got the Texas kid. It's all over. And it's just so encouraging, because one of the main complaints among many with the Chip Kelly era was the lack of effort in recruiting.
Yeah.
And just seeing how much effort is being put forth where, I mean, I feel like we're going to have a commitment from every state in the country at this rate we're going right now. It's unbelievable. And we talked about it, man. Like, you get a top 100 player in Gooden. Almeida, ironically, actually had the better offer list if you're just going for program for
Yes.
program.
Yeah.
He had Notre
End to
Dame, he
end.
had Clemson, he had Auburn, he had big time schools, 6'4", 280. I mean, I'm looking at the highlight tapes. He's doing scoop and scores at 280, and what he's able to do, I think he's going to play more of the 4-3 technique in college on that interior. Gooden's that kind of guy that just has that, he's so athletic. He's got that bend off the edge. That's just a dream, for defensive ends. So home runs, and then you add it to the group that they've got, where we talked about Anthony Jones, man. We talked about Schwartzel, who's a 4-star in his own right on 24/7. Jones is a 4-star in his own right on multiple recruiting services as well. And we think God, given the fact that we talked about kind of the under-recruiting prowess of some of these kids not getting to go to camps and things like that, I'll take Kirby Smart and Texas offers all day with God. So you combine all those elements. This is a chance to be a badass unit for UCLA football on that defensive line, and it's starting with Coach Malloy. So you got to tip your cap to the man in charge of the defense, Mr. Malloy.
Absolutely, Will. And you said it best. We won't belabor the point anymore, but I think if you're a defensive lineman or even an offensive lineman for that matter, if you're an elite trench prospect and you're looking at the landscape of college football here, Will, I think there's some inherent advantages of UCLA. And now that you have a coaching staff that's really committed and bought into the recruiting process, look, when you look at the landscape of an elite recruit, they're looking at two conferences. Number one, they're looking at the SEC and they're looking at the Big Ten. Couple of exceptions to that rule, with like a Clemson, a Miami, and whatnot. But overall, you're looking at those two conferences. Now, if you look at the Big Ten, Will, and you sort of assess that 18-team conference, okay, sure, you've got Ohio State, you've got Michigan, you've got Oregon. We don't know what USC is, but historically, obviously, there's a pedigree there. And then you've got Penn State. UCLA, without having to really try and do anything, just being who they are, the campus, the university, the lifestyle, you're talking about the sixth most attractive school from a player perspective in the conference right off the jump without having to really do anything. No disrespect to these other schools, but you're right. You're at 6 out of 18 just off the bat. Now, if you're putting effort into it and you're putting a strategy together and you're putting development and engagement and all of these things, hey, like Happy Valley is an incredible place to play. No question about it. The pageantry there is unreal. But would you rather live in Happy Valley or would you rather live in Los Angeles? And similarly, Oregon with the Nike money is insane. Would you rather live in Eugene or would you rather live in LA? And so obviously those places are super attractive when you're a blue chip prospect. But if you're looking for a place that's a little bit more laid back and where you have an opportunity to build something that isn't established yet, whereas all those places are established, look, UCLA is going to be top 3 or 4 on your list in the Big Ten. And I think that is what is being revealed here, is that those inherent advantages with UCLA coupled with the engagement in the recruiting, we're seeing terrific results. And so, Will, again, recruits 22 and 23. This is going to be a phenomenal class for us moving forward and the building block for great things to come. But of course, we tantalize with the intoxication of 2026, Will, but there's a 2025 season to play. And so I know this is going to be a really fun conversation about some burning questions. What is it going to take for UCLA to reach their potential in 2025 and continue the DeShaun Foster momentum in year 2? And you could sort of argue in asterisk year 1, because it was sort of his full year, to really get UCLA to where it needs to be, of this being a building block. So, Will, I'll start with you. What are your top 2 burning questions that you think are going to be the big tipping points of whether or not this is an okay year to an exceptional year for UCLA?
I mean, I'm going to come out of the gate scorching, but I've got stats and stuff to back it up. Here is my number 1 question, and it's not shocking. It's about the Nico Iamaleava and Tino Sinceri relationship.
Yes.
And I don't have, I don't have a semblance of how this question is going to go about with the fan base. But here is my question. Can Tino Sinceri elevate Nico Iamaleava not only to the best quarterback, maybe in the Big Ten, but could he actually be a legitimate Heisman candidate coming into this year? And let me back this up with what he has done in his past as a quarterback's coach at James Madison and the offensive coordinator last year at Indiana. With James Madison, he's the quarterback's coach there. That's kind of his first major job on the offense. He takes a kid by the name of Jordan McLeod, who actually transferred from James Madison to Texas State last year. Really rebuilt his career. This guy had over 70 touchdowns in the last few years. Before Tino got to work with him really in full, he had his previous season, 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and mock-up duty. Looked like a guy that was going to be struggling to make a field. He's undersized. He's 6 foot. He's 200 pounds. He goes out and puts on 35 touchdowns to only 10 interceptions while completing close to 70% of his passes. He was a top 10 passer in D1. They had made the move up to D1. They were in the Sun Belt last year. And what he did for his career was he made Jordan McLeod one of the most productive Division I quarterbacks over the last 2 seasons within college football. Tino moves. He goes to Indiana, and they take a kid from the MAC, Curtis Rourke, if you will. And Curtis Rourke, here's his numbers at Ohio the year before. And granted, I know he lost a lot of talent. He was a little bit better the year before, but this was his year. He kind of struggled and regressed and tried to go to Indiana to prove he could play with the big boys. A little over 2,000 yards, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. You're not blowing anybody away with those stats. 2 touchdowns to 1 interception ratio, pretty solid. I think he had a high completion percentage. But he makes the switch to Indiana. There's 40-plus transfers in and out of that area. And he comes in 3,000-plus yards, highest completion percentage in the country. They were number 2 in pass efficiency as a team, Indiana, under Tino Sinceri as the offensive coordinator, trailing only Jackson Dart and Ole Miss in that category. 29 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and he finished 9th in the Heisman Trophy voting as he got them to the playoffs. So when you add up all of those stats right there, Madman, you see what he's done with kind of kids that lower tier D1, a kid from the MAC, a kid from James Madison. You're giving him a 5-star talent quarterback last year who, granted, he had his ups and downs last year, but he led Tennessee to the college football playoff last year. Think about what he can do and the ceiling he has, knowing what he has produced with his last 2 quarterbacks in McLeod and Rourke. What do you think about that? That if everything goes right with Nico and Tino, we could be talking him going to New York City for the Heisman ceremony.
No, Will, I mean, everything that you said is so logical and so reasonable in my mind. It's the same first burning question that I have, which is exactly that, right? How high is the ceiling of this Nico Iamaleava and Tino Sinceri partnership? And I think you laid it out beautifully in terms of how Sinceri has found the diamonds in the rough, whether it was James Madison, whether it was Indiana. You look at the before picture, you look at the after picture. It's the ultimate quarterback makeover is Tino Sinceri. Will, so it's so spot on. Another way to look at this is to be a Heisman candidate, you got to kind of play quarterback, and it feels like you got to be in one of these 2 marquee conferences at this point,
Yeah.
And so if you are a top 2 quarterback in the Big Ten, I think by definition, you are a Heisman Trophy contender. Now, if we look at it from the landscape of who else is coming back and playing the position of quarterback in the 2025 season in the Big Ten, you've got Drew Aller, who's sort of your most experienced guy. But Will, I got to be honest with you. If you look at the mechanics of Aller and you look at the mechanics of Iamaleava, they're not that different. I mean, they're both beautifully fluid passers. They're both really good in terms of throwing on platform, off platform. And so Iamaleava has all the tools in the toolbox to sort of match Aller in terms of kind of form and in terms of, mechanics. Now, Aller, I think there's still some questions about him in big games. He still has to sort of overcome that, but he's probably your guy in the clubhouse right now. You look at a Fernando Mendoza, who's going to now come into Indiana, replacing Curtis Rourke, did some amazing things at Cal with a lesser team, but now you wonder, what is he going to be able to do with Kurt Cinetti? He's a really tough kid, but again, similar mechanics, similar style as Iamaleava. And then you got a bunch of kids, Will, that, are unproven. The Bryce Underwoods, everyone's very excited about with Michigan, Slayen at Ohio State. These are very high-end prospects with a ton of talent. But you and I have said this now for months, even years. No matter how good you are, as a true freshman at the next level, it's going to take a little bit of time. You don't know what Jaden Maeva is going to be at USC. You've got, Luke Altmaier is a good quarterback at Illinois. You're wondering about Aiden Childs at Michigan State. So that's all to say, when you look at Iamaleava's tool set and what he put up as a true freshman, as I should say, a redshirt freshman starter at Tennessee, granted, 11 of the 17 touchdowns were against lesser competition, but you get him into the lab with a preeminent quarterback coach, and you look at that landscape of the Big Ten, Will, in terms of quarterbacks, it is not unreasonable to think that Iamaleava could be a top 2 quarterback in the Big Ten this year, given who his quarterback coach is and what the other quarterbacks are in this particular conference. So if everything hits, I think we could really be having an honest conversation about this. Let's not forget, Will, it was only 3 years ago, where Dorian Thompson-Robinson was a top 4 Heisman candidate going into the second half of October. Okay, so this is not that far-fetched if everything hits in the right way. So I love your first burning question, and it's my first burning question. Completely agree with it.
Yeah, and I just got one more point to add to that. Aller, I think is very skilled, and I think a lot of people say with a big year, he could be looking at a top 10 pick in the NFL draft next year. But Nico's got 2 advantages over him in terms of getting to New York as a Heisman candidate. One, Aller, I think maybe in a run-first offense, he may have the best running back room coming back next year with Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. And 2, it's not often the Eskimo, it's not often the ice, it's the Eskimo itself. With Tino's offense, it's a high-volume pass-first offense. The stats will benefit Nico if everything goes his favor and he's able to play that 12, 13-game schedule. And we think offense with UCLA can be what it will be. So I just think with those 2 factors in place and knowing what Tino's done with the quarterback room, sky's the limit with a 5-star talent like Nico, the Polynesian MVP of 2023, the man who led Tennessee to the college football playoff. We got one in Westwood, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo, we got one indeed. We're fired up. Let's run through a wall, Will. I'm loving it. Absolutely. Okay, Will, over to you. Second and final burning question for you, Thriller.
Wow, there's a variety of different ways I can go to. I prepared a lot. I could do the defensive line, which is a tough one. I may save that one for you. We could go the offensive line, which I'm feeling very excited about. But it's going to be a chain reaction between the quarterback and the room I'm talking about right now. Could UCLA quietly put together a top 5 wide receiver room with the pieces they may have in place within the Big Ten? And like you said, it's a power 2 type of league now. This could lead to a top 10 receiving room within college football when all is said and done. And let's kind of break it down a little bit more. You've got Quasi Gilmer returning after the freshman sensation, made play after play, showed off his 4-star status as a recruit. You get different guys coming into the room. Jaden Wilson is one of those guys from Arkansas we really like a lot. We got the transfer Mikey Matthews coming from Cal and Utah. You've got different guys like that. And there's 2 unknown facts that I think a lot of fans of college football are not really playing into, account here that could really swing UCLA to being one of those top 10 receiving rooms in college football. Number 1, if and when Rico Flores comes back for UCLA football this year, that is a massive addition. Remember, this guy was the 3rd leading receiver on Notre Dame his freshman year, his true freshman year in South Bend, a guy from the Inland Empire. Yes, he was offered by Notre Dame, but yes, he was also offered by Georgia, Texas, Alabama, big name schools. He is now at UCLA. And let's not forget, opening week last year, I'm watching the Hawaii UCLA game, sweating bullets with you and your dad on your family's couch. The 53-yard touchdown catch from Rico Flores helped us kind of all calm down and settle down and say, you know what, we're going to win this game. He had 3 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown that game. It was never really healthy after that point.
Right.
So if you can add a healthy Rico Flores, Ben Bolch, according to his tweet after the surgery, he said a timeline to expect for return is September or October. So if you can just add a Rico Flores to the ingredients you have here, that would be such a big win. And then I think a lot of people aren't privy to what's going on right now with Caden Robinson, the transfer on paper, right, who came in from Appalachian State, was going to be with Joey Aguilar. Aguilar flips to Tennessee. Caden Robinson got denied eligibility, but he was able to file a waiver with the NCAA to try to reinstate himself to potentially play in the fall this year for one final year of college football. Caden Robinson was a guy that had 10-plus touchdown seasons in Appalachian State. He was on the radar of some big-time schools, eventually chose UCLA. So if you had Caden Robinson and Rico Flores to the Jaden Wilsons, to the Mikey Matthews, to our, favorite of the bunch, Quasi Gilmer, I mean, come on, with what Tino is doing and what Nico is doing, what I said just earlier, this could be one of the best wide receiver groups in the entire country. What do you think about that?
Well, I love it. And I think it's absolutely spot on. I think there's a couple of wild cards there, to your point, with, Robinson, and then obviously what will happen with Flores Jr. Because if you can bring those two in and incorporate that with kind of the shiftiness of a Mikey Matthews, the home run ability of Jaden Wilson, just the big play ability on all 3 levels of the defense of Quasi Gilmer, and then that opportunity for TMA to be yet another slot guy. You're talking about exactly. You're talking about half a dozen playmakers here for UCLA, and the opportunity to kind of go 4 wide, 5 wide, spread it out, do a lot of things that Indiana did last year, and then stack receivers on one side, do a lot of motion, do a lot of shifting. I mean, it opens up the playbook in a very, very significant way, particularly in games where you might not be having your fastball on the offensive line. I think we think this is going to be a vastly improved unit. Those games are going to be a lot fewer and further between. But even if you're struggling with a pass rush, that ability, that playbook with those level of receivers allows you to sort of stay in the game without having, the blocking up front, which has sort of been a struggle in years past. I think, Will, it's so fascinating. Flores, to me, man, you and I sort of salivated over Flores last spring. And he's been the guy for me where if it's all clicking outside of Gilmer, because I think Gilmer has the highest ceiling and the ability to be the biggest playmaker on this team, he's the guy to me that has the biggest upside. Unfortunately, Will, and I hope I'm wrong here. I really want to be wrong here. But to me, it feels like Flores' breakout season is going to be 26 and not 25, just because I think
starting the season on the bench.
The not having, it's one thing to be able to come back in September and October, but not having those reps in the spring, not having those reps in fall ball, not being able to build a rapport with the Iamaleava, and say he comes first week of October to come in like game 4, game 5. I think it's going to be a tall order. He may make an incredible play or two later in the season, 6-7 games in, and he may kind of do something amazing because he's that talented. But I think that is going to be, to me, perhaps too big a jump. But God, I hope I'm wrong there because he's such a game changer. And then to your other point, Will, Caden Robinson, I think he would have been so huge in this system because of the familiarity of league as well as style from App State. And that 6'2", 205, you're talking about that prototypical, possession receiver, which is so critical in this Sunseri system. And so hopefully, he gets the waiver, but I worry a little bit, Will, with these waivers right now, particularly with all the conversation about this college football commission and, just sort of they're looking at ways to sort of tighten regulation where they can because it's such a wild west with NIL. Yeah. So I feel like they're going to use the waiver as a topic where it's like they got firm with it, so I worry about Robinson coming in So to me, then it puts even more of an emphasis on TMA being that possession guy. Between TMA and Mikey Matthews, you're going to get a lot of that possession stuff. And then with Gilmer and Wilson, you're going to sort of blow the top off the defense. So even if you have those four, Will, I mean, you have an opportunity to really make some incredible strides offensively in that playbook with that quarterback, and it all comes together. And I think that's what we're so excited about, because last year we just lacked so much verticality to the offense. We're excited to see it open up again, as we saw in some of those DTR years.
Absolutely, man. So, yeah, I mean, Flores is a tough one just because the injury is going to sideline him at the beginning of the year. But I could see him coming back. And, like, if you're asking for who is pound for pound the most talented NFL type of receiver coming out of that room, might be him, honestly. Yeah. So I wouldn't hold it against him for making some plays for us down the stretch here. And I agree, like, I think 2026 with a whole healthy offseason and learning the ropes, he'll be better. But he's going to help in some way, some capacity, if he's able to see the field, given the talent level he possesses.
No question. And so, Will, I'll give you my last burning question and want to get your thoughts on it. I don't think it's a surprise. You sort of mentioned it earlier. You referenced it. We have to go here, right? We talked about quarterback. We alluded a little bit in terms of the adjacencies of the offensive line. We're talking about receiver. Look, I think you and I are both very confident in the running back room just because of the personnel there, but also it's a DeShaun Foster system. That's sort of what he is and what he does. We also sort of, I think, have a fair amount of confidence just from a depth standpoint with the secondary. When you got 17 guys in the secondary, things are going to sort of work out well.
5 of them are going to figure it out. Yeah. 5 of them are going to figure it out back there, man.
5 of them are going to figure it out. So to me, Will, the ultimate question here is defensive line and getting into the trenches. Who is going to emerge on this defensive line and who are going to be the stalwarts? We got some guys that are coming back, Gary Smith, but, Keanu Williams in terms of anchors. We've got some great transfers from some big name schools, but not a lot of production there. So it's the great unknown, Will, and how do we replace the Oladijos, the Jay Toias, and then, of course, the Laiatu Latu from 2 years ago. Obviously, Schlesinger, Madrano, Moasau were all linebackers. And I think there's some questions there. I mean, we really like Chisholm, but what after Chisholm? John Vaughn's hopefully in that hybrid linebacker sort of type of safety role. But I think, you're going to play some more 4-2-5, I think, with Malloy. And so with Chisholm and a couple spot players, I think you're going to be okay in that middle part of the field. To me, Will, in this conference, in terms of the run-heavy nature, invariably the close games in the Big Ten, everyone plays everyone within 10 points in this conference, unless you get kind of an Ohio State-Purdue game, every now and then in this conference. You have to be able to run the ball, but you have to be able to stop the run in this conference. Yeah. And so to me, this defensive line, Will, and their effectiveness at setting the edge, as well as being able to stay aggressive and stay fresh in the second half of games, is going to be the difference of about 3 or 4 wins this season. 3 or 4 games are going to get swung just on this unit and this unit alone. So to me, that has to be the other burning question.
Yeah. And, I think you can make a case. This is the biggest coaching challenge of Coach Malloy's career in terms of generating a pass rush. And you have a litany of guys that have been at big programs, but have had little production, like Devin Alpue coming back, 6'5", 270-pound defensive end. We were excited about him, 11 tackles last year, had a sack and a half, but was kind of just under the radar. You didn't really hear about him a lot. Nico DeVilliers, we're like, man, we got an edge from Arkansas. We're really excited about this kid. 6'4", 271-pound senior, 1 career sack. He's coming into his senior year, 1 career sack. So you just haven't seen the production. You get Keyshawn Bennett from Michigan. You go, this guy won a national championship with Michigan. These D-lines have been amazing. 7 career tackles. It's just a lot of guys that had the Letterman jackets at the big school, but even most of their big fans wouldn't know who they were if you kind of asked them who it is. I think the guy that I have the most kind of excitement for of the group is Anthony Jones. We're going to maybe have 2 Anthony Jones on campus in the D-line room as a whole in 2026, with a guy for 2025, the Michigan State transfer,
Yes.
6'4", 260 pounds, 2 career sacks. 2 of them came last year. So I just think that frame, that size, those Michigan State guys are just tough as nails, man. It's just something about there's certain types of programs that kind of reflect this. Like, I hate to say it, USC always produces great receivers. That's what they do. Keyshawn Johnson, going back to some of the big names that they've had in the 2010s. You know, even up until now, I think Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane. I was talking high about the UCLA receiving room. I don't think I can feasibly put ourselves above what USC has over there. And then you go across the country, and Michigan State has these tough in the trenches type of guys. So Anthony Jones is kind of that guy for me if he can kind of blow up. I've been a Grant Bucky guy for a long time. I've been waiting to see that on the football field. I know you've heard it time and time again. I'm like, watch out for Bucky. We haven't seen it yet, but I'm excited for what his potential may be here. And I think the interior is going to be fine. Like, I think run defense will be fine, but when it's 3rd and 6 and you got to get to
Set the edge. Yep.
In a big time play, we need to get to the quarterback, man. And we're not able to do it last year without Olufemi Oladeja, who left. So if they can just find some magic, if Malloy can coach this unit up, because there's talent there. I mean, we mentioned the programs these kids come from. If he can coach this up, I think this will just be an even bigger feather in the cap for Coach Malloy. And instead of getting a 3- and 4-star recruit coming in right now, he's going to get the 4- and the 5-star recruit duo next year in the 2026-2027 cycle. So it'll be nice.
Will, I think you said that really well. And I agree with you in terms of the 2 guys that I think have the highest ceiling and the 2 that I'm really looking for. One is Anthony Jones, you said it, and the other is de Villiers. And I think that the reason for that is I think not just the frame, the size and the weight, but I think what we've seen on film is those 2 have at least been on the field in some big situations, right? I mean, de Villiers in Arkansas played Georgia. You know, he played Bama. He played LSU. You know, those were some big-time games that he was in. Granted, the production wasn't there, but he got those reps. He got those experiences, and he's got that frame. And then same thing with Jones. Again, we sort of go back to this power 2 theme in Michigan State, playing Michigan, playing Ohio State, you know, playing Oregon last year, and sort of having the reps in these big ball games to sort of understand what it takes. So I think one of those 2 guys is going to have to hit in a significant way, Will.
Yes.
And if they can, and I think we get that ability to get some consistent pass rush, I do believe the interior will be fine, you know, and particularly Keanu coming back, Gary Smith coming back. I think having some veteran leadership with some of the new guys, you know, is this the breakout year for Bucky, to your point, I think will really sort of coalesce in a very nice way. If those 2 don't hit and we don't find that sort of game breaker on the edge, Will, that is going to be problematic moving forward, because then, you know, what the domino effect of that is, and we've seen it over the years, when you can't get off the field on 3rd and 6 and 3rd and 7, you start feeling it in the second half of these games, where then the defense just wears out and you can stay close for 2 quarters, for 2.5 quarters, and then a team is going to pull away. And we saw that so much these last couple of years that I think we got to sort of break that trend. So I'm totally with you, Will. Nico, we got obviously the receivers, we got the D-line, you know, 3 burning questions. But I think, Will, the possibilities here are very, very tantalizing with this roster. And I'm excited in one of these next episodes, you and me are really going to kind of break down, now that we've seen everything, now that the roster is sort of filled out, what is the win-loss projection that we have for this team? Can't wait for it. Thriller, any closing thoughts before we wrap for the evening?
UCLA being back in the top 20 in recruiting. We got Big Ten Media Day in roughly 2 weeks coming up. What's the old line that, you know, our boy Jerry says? It's a great day to be alive and be a Bruin. Great way to close the episode. We're going to have more burning storylines. We're going to break down some future opponents and just talk UCLA ball like you guys want us to do. So keep liking, keep subscribing. This train is keeping going. I didn't think I was going to come back, but guys, the excitement for this year, being with my boy Madman, it was too, you know, tantalizing not to come back and talk ball. So
yes, sir.
Man, so.
Thriller, when you came back, it's just been such a breath of energy and fresh air, and I knew you would. UCLA, baby, you can't keep away very long, and so absolutely, folks, hit that like and subscribe button. We got a ton of content coming your way. Thriller and I are going to be at Big Ten Media Day, all things covered. Hopefully, DeShaun gets more than 2 words in this year. I think he will. And as always, 4's up forever, baby.